Speaking of men we all aspire to be,
Nice.
I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. This is This Week.
In Cruton.
Good one.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, our Director of Recruiting here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter. No, well, I do follow our friends Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1.
For sure.
But see his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. And, of course, this is brought to you by our good chicken friends at Chicken Express. Chicken Express. When I was in Lockhart this week, we did not eat at Chicken Express. We ate at a different restaurant because I have a
Lockhart?
I have a four-year-old team demanded it. No, we didn't
Gotcha.
we didn't eat at Smitty's or Croyd's Market.
Okay.
But I will tell you, we were driving by the Chicken Express in Lockhart, jammed. Okay? I want you to think about how good Chicken Express was that in Lockhart, Texas, like the cradle of barbecue, there was like a line around the building
Wow.
at Chicken Express.
Jeez.
Because you know what?
That's not shocking, though.
People know.
Football
People do
season's
know.
right around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And my brain naturally associates football and Chicken Express together.
Yeah.
Good one.
Like those are two things that go hand in hand now.
Yeah.
And it's just been built up, ingrained in me that when I think about football, I think about wanting to eat at Chicken Express. I can't help it.
Correct.
Yeah, I always think about the tendies and the gravy as the touchdown, the extra point.
Here,
Like you need both.
Here's
like
an-
one is fine, but like
I'm so hungry.
together.
here's a
talk
note to all
about this.
stadium managers. Chicken Express in the press box
for
the win.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
100%. 100%. If you walk into a press box and like
There's a tray of tendies.
they've got chicken ear, they got like the yellow boxes sitting
Yeah.
there. Sometimes you're just like,
Let's do it.
I've
Let them do the
I haven't
cooking.
experienced that before.
You haven't?
No.
it is about,
That might.
I'd say it's probably
Make my
one out of
entire
every 10
life.
press boxes I go in.
Yeah.
Or about them.
Corsicana always used to do it. Used to be
Oh my
loaded up with
gosh,
Chicken
yeah.
A few
Express.
others.
Allen, sometimes I get
Mhm.
lucky with Chicken Express. Well, where I hook up with Chicken Express at Allen is when the teams order it for like when they're going to get on the bus.
Did I tell
And
you?
I walk by and I'm like, hey, buddy. how
This
about-
is.
Yeah.
I promise
an
we'll
extra
get,
box?
I promise we'll get to recruiting in a moment. But like, there was a game a couple years ago, like 2021, I want to say. We went out to a Longview game.
Yeah.
They're playing in Mesquite, and I think they're playing West Mesquite. And so we go out there. It was a Thursday night. Go out there. After the game, we're talking with Coach King. They get a win, stuff like that. I'm talking with Coach King and his wife, and I think his daughter, who is like a badass gymnast, was there too.
Oh, that's
But anyway,
awesome.
we're all talking, and like Coach was talking to me about like something important, and all I kept doing was looking over his shoulder at his players who were all sitting there with the yellow boxes, and I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
could you stop talking and just let me
Let me observe.
Let me see if you got, I'm like, you guys got any more of those boxes? Anyway, we love you, Chicken Express. It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, our recruiting director here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We'll start with our Prospect on the Rise. Prospect on the Rise, let's go to Comanche.
Let's do it.
Talk about their soon-to-be senior cornerback, Kyler Beatty, who grand opening, grand closing, picked up an offer from Baylor on August 1st, thought about it for about 72 hours, and said, yep,
Committing.
works for me. Kyler Beatty, the newest Baylor commit there, going to the Bears. And I know Coach Jake Escobar is crazy about this young man.
Yeah, quoted difference maker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. A guy who really does start on both sides of the ball for them. Comanche's, you know what? Don't sleep on Comanche. I think, what were they, 10-2 last season? And have a lot of talent coming back. In addition to Kyler Beatty, they have a really good running back who's going to be a junior this season. A lot of people are going to be talking about him pretty soon. But keeping it specific to Kyler, he's a guy who sticks out like a sore thumb on this highlight tape because he's bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody else who's on it. Like when you're watching this level of football, you're looking at the cornerback. You're not expecting him to be like one of the biggest dudes on the field. Well, that's what happens here. And he dominates at how you would expect a kid to dominate at this level of ball who's going to be playing at a P5 conference school in state at Baylor. I really like his upside and potential as he matures within that program at the next level in Waco as a corner, big-bodied corner. Could certainly slide over and probably play some safety as well if need be. But they like to get him involved on the offensive side of the ball as well. And I like to watch that on this highlight tape because that shows you his overall athleticism and his upside and potential as he locks in on the defensive side of the ball moving forward. Most likely on the defensive side of the ball moving forward. Big commitment for Baylor, but really cool news out of Comanche. I think that a lot of fans are going to be psyched to go out and watch future Baylor Bear on Friday Night Live.
Yeah, he's
under the Friday Night Lights.
Most certainly. He is a big-time playmaker and a nice get for Dave Aranda and company as they pull in cornerback Kyler Beatty out of Comanche. Let's move down to Houston to talk about our commit of the week. Our commit of the week is Atascocita wide receiver Jelani Watkins, our number 4 wide receiver in the DCTF Rising Hot 100, our number 28 prospect overall in the class of 2024, and he committed this week to LSU. The Tigers continue to go into Houston and do some damage on the recruiting trail, and Jelani Watkins is the latest Tiger to be.
Yeah, and speed is the name of Jelani Watkins' game. 10.33 verified 100-meter speed. He's been clocked as low as 10.21 in the 100-meter dash, so I think that he challenges Texas A&M commitment Ernest Campbell for the fastest man in the class of 2024. I'm probably putting him 1, 2, and we'll talk about number 3 a little bit later on. I got 3 guys who I think are the speediest guys in the state. Watkins is known for that speed, and he can transform, screen passes or quick passes into big gains, explosive plays, touchdowns. But don't sleep on his ability to stretch the field, and because he has really good hands. Soft hands, strong hands, catches the ball really well. Kind of a more well-rounded receiver than you typically say, just like as a specific slot guy. But I do think he's the highest-rated slot wide receiver in the state and can just bring a little bit more to the table than just a specific slot player. You'll see here as he played for Klein Forest last year, they like to line him up in the backfield, find creative ways to get him the ball, and I think Humble Atascocita will do the same thing. That was big news this week as well because I didn't know Jelani Watkins had transferred to Humble Atascocita until I saw the reports coming out from those who attended some of the practices here as we lead up to the season. That's a big time addition to an offense that already has Torrey Blaylock, already has Nate Kibble up front. Humble Atascocita is a state championship contender, and even more so now that they have a bona fide 4-star to stretch the field.
He's a star and going to do some big time damage there at LSU once he gets there as Jelani Watkins, the newest commitment for the LSU Tigers. We're talking This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, our recruiting analyst here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. Let's roll on to our prospect on the rise. Underclassmen of the week. Underclassmen of the week, thank you. We're going to the class of 2025 to talk about Houston legacy offensive lineman Joshua Moses, who this week became the first commitment for Texas A&M in that aforementioned class of 2025.
Yes.
He had offers from places like Oklahoma, TCU, Arkansas, decided to commit to the Texas A&M Aggies. Houston Legacy School of Sports and Sciences, I think it's what its full name is. But he is a guy who is entering his junior year and already has 3 years of varsity play under his belt. Explain that to me.
Well, the Houston Legacy School of Sports Sciences allows their players to play varsity when they're in the 8th grade.
Jeez.
So their league allows that.
Yeah.
So he's been on the radar for a long time. We've known about him for a while. He plays left tackle there, and he has pretty quick feet for a guy who's he's massive, right? But what I really like about his development is whenever he first started stepping onto the field his 8th and 9th grade years, he was probably up around 340, 345. So he shed about 25, 30 pounds as he's entering now his junior season, got in really good shape, started to transform his body, and that helps him move even better. And you can see that reciprocated in his offer list. He picked Texas A&M over schools like Oklahoma and Arkansas, so he was a guy that was really starting to jump up the recruiting lists and the ranking lists, and I think he will even more so powered behind a strong junior season. He plays left tackle, but he's a guard moving forward. He's going to play on the interior of the offensive line in the SEC. Good road grader, but he's not a slappy whenever it comes to pass blocking. So he's a well-rounded guy and a guy I think that has a really big upside. That Legacy School of Sports Sciences has some pretty good talent in the pipeline right now. Not only have Joshua Moses, but they have a prospect, Joseph Smith, who just made a commitment to Arizona State, and they got Keyshawn Henderson and Mike Brown in the class of 2026. So colleges are going to be stopping by there. This is going to be a hotbed for recruiting talent over the next couple cycles.
He is a name to know there. Houston Legacy's Joshua Moses, big-time offensive lineman, and now heading to Texas A&M as the part of their class of 2025. Let's round it all out with our recruits of the week.
Yep. Put the S in there.
And it's a double dip in Duncanville coming down tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
2:00 tomorrow. Duncanville defensive end Colin Simmons and running back Caden Durham will both be committing Thursday, August 10th at 2:00. DCTF, you will be there, correct? DCTF will be there on hand for the announcement. Simmons is the number one prospect in the DCTF Rising Hot 100 overall. He's number one defensive end. I guess I should probably tell you that too. But he is a nationally rated recruit. Same thing with Caden Durham, who is, where's he clock in?
In his speed, I think.
No. I meant on the.
He's the number 2 running back. I think he's the number 16 prospect in the Hot 100.
So you got,
like an elite guy.
Yeah. So 2 of the top 16 recruits in the state are going to be committing at the same time tomorrow, 2:00. There at Duncanville High School. Simmons has a final 3 of Texas, Miami, and LSU. Durham has a final 3 of A&M, Oklahoma, and LSU. Here's my thought, and this is the way my brain works. I see one team that each of them have in their final 3, and if they're committing together, I wonder if tomorrow's going to be a good day for the Bayou Tigers.
Man, the recruitment of Colin Simmons has been a lot of fun. It's been a wild ride. Caden Durham as well, and I'll just walk you through what I think and how I feel about both of these guys. First and foremost, Colin Simmons is probably the most elite pass rusher in the country. Broke Duncanville's sack record last year with 22.5 sacks.
Duncanville's sack record. Not like, this program that's been around for 5 years, and not this program that hasn't put guys into college and the NFL. Duncanville,
And helped lead them to Coach Samples, a historic Texas high school football coach, his first state championship win. They wouldn't have won that game if Colin Simmons wasn't on the field. Let's just be honest. He had a great game in the state championship game, and that's what makes him an elite recruit. I compare him favorably to Kaylavon Chason. That is my player comparison for Colin Simmons. They remind me so much of one another. And you remember Chason was a beast as well when he was playing Texas high school football before he committed to LSU over Texas. Very similar story. This one has been trending all over the place over the last couple weeks, over the last 48 hours. You probably heard me talking to our bosses in here about where Colin Simmons was leaning. 48 hours ago, I was saying LSU. This one has trended back heavily in favor of Texas.
Really?
Especially over the last 24 hours.
Okay.
There's a lot of buzz out there that this one could end up favorably for the Longhorns. LSU has been at the top or towards the top of his leaderboard for a long time, but he's had a solid top 2 of LSU and Texas for a while now. Texas just has been able to put together a good NIL package for Colin Simmons and offers him the opportunity to stay close to home to play his college ball. So I'm keeping a really close eye on the Longhorns. Could trend in the direction of LSU overnight. I mean, you never know what happens.
But you think right now it's a top 3, but you would narrow it down to a top 2 LSU.
Well, I mean, he said he's quoted as saying it was a top 2 at one point, and now Miami's back in there. But I think it comes down to LSU and Texas, and there's a lot that makes me want to say LSU in this, because it was LSU in Georgia. It was LSU in this school. It was LSU has always been there. In my experience covering these recruitments, that school usually wins, right? If you're the top 2 with a bunch of other schools and you've always been like there with other schools, that school usually wins out. Texas has done a remarkable job in this recruitment. If he picks Texas, Steve Sarkisian and his staff, this is like the biggest win since they've been there. I know that they've gotten 2 tremendous number 1 rated running backs, but he's a transcendent defensive player.
So you're saying you would put this, and certainly I know he was an out-of-state kid.
Yeah.
You would say that this would be a bigger win than Arch Manning.
I think so, just for what he brings to the
Wow.
defensive side of the ball. Now, I would also rate Colin Simmons higher than Arch Manning personally.
Yes.
Like based off of tape. So that's just me, and I don't cover state of Louisiana football, so I don't know that. But I did watch Arch Manning whenever he committed to Texas. We certainly talked about it a whole lot. But if I were rating those guys side by side in the same class, Colin Simmons would be rated ahead of Arch Manning in my personal rankings. So yes, I would. I mean, I think I would take the running backs too. The last two running backs that they've signed from out of state were both like excellent stud players. I think that they're really good.
So that's Colin Simmons, and
Okay.
he's going to be choosing between Texas, LSU, and Florida. You think it's down to Texas and LSU?
Yeah, Texas, LSU, and Miami.
In Miami. I'm sorry, Texas, LSU, and Miami, correct. Caden Durham, his superstar running back on the other side, has a final three of Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and LSU. Now, this is one of the fastest guys in Texas as well.
Yeah, there's a healthy debate. I think there's a healthy debate between Jelani Watkins and Caden Durham because Caden Durham's a 10.25 guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, elite track speed. My player comparison for Caden Durham is J.K. Dobbins. So I really think that J.K. Dobbins and Caden Durham's game resemble each other a lot. Very similarly rated. You know, one of the top players in the state of Texas. Run really hard in the middle of the field. No wasted movement with that ability to kick it into top gear and score touchdowns. Again, what Simmons provided on the defensive side of the ball for Duncanville, Durham brought to the table on the offensive side of the ball. I think the difference for that offense to be able to win the state championship last year was speed. And Durham provided that. DeCorian Moore provided some of it on the outside as well, and they had some good other receivers who were not only like big dudes, but they could also run. But Durham's ability to kick it into another gear helped them score more touchdowns. They were a much more much more explosive offense, I feel like, in 2022. And all those guys are like basically coming back this year. Durham has Texas A&M, LSU, and Oklahoma. I'm looking at LSU and Oklahoma as the top two in this. And again, OU has always been the perceived leader in his recruitment. He transferred to Duncanville from Southmore High School. He's got, I think both of his parents might have went to OU. But caveat here, OU recently picked up a commitment from the number one rated running back in the state, Taylor Tatum. So Caden Durham's number 2. I think he's heading to Baton Rouge.
Okay.
So if I had a gun to my head right now, sports gun to my head right now. Burn orange for Colin Simmons.
Okay.
Go Tigers for Caden Durham. And I think it's going to be this is going to be a wild commitment ceremony. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be fun.
And stay tuned. TexasFootball.com/recruiting. We'll have all the interviews and all the stuff posted as soon as we can.
He's Greg Powers, our director of recruiting here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and he will be in Duncanville tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So make sure you follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout and see his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. Stick around because we need to talk more Duncanville after this.
Let's do it.